How was this off season, in specific ways, different than the last off season when you were you were considering resurrecting your career?
Well, I had a job, so that's a good thing. I had a spell where I was unemployed last off season, so that's always nice and gives you a little security. And I think the biggest thing was being able to go into the off season, knowing what I was getting ready for. Last year I kind of did a crash course, trying to get myself back in shape before I showed up here and got signed. So this year I had the full 4 months to work out and get after it in there, and add some weight on, and just physically get myself ready for the season, for a full season.
I know you were one of baseball's best stories last year. You won comeback player of the year, etc. From a little bit of a distance now, how do you look back on your performance and just evaluate yourself from last year beyond the fact that you made this remarkable comeback?
Yeah, I mean it's so strange to be able to just look back and be proud of a season for once. It's been a long time since I've been able to be proud of a year from start to finish, and really just not having to worry about the things I had to worry about for so long, and just being able to, like I said, get my body ready, keep my mind ready, and try to have a plan for this team and how to best help this team this year. I mean, it's just a very different thing than I've had in a while, but definitely welcome it.
One more from me, Daniel. Is your ultimate goal to be the closer for this team?
I just want to pitch, just like last year. I want to pitch, and hopefully those are meaningful situations, whatever that is. We're getting a lot of good arms back. We're gonna have Obi back, which is huge. We'll be a way better bullpen with him out there with us, and I'm excited to see what happens.
Thank you.
Go to Thomas Harding from Rockies.com. Thomas, go ahead.
Daniel, great seeing you again.
Good to see you.
All right. First of all, a lot of the guys are talking about listening to you a lot and treating you, as a leader. How big do you take that responsibility, and what is your leadership style with those guys back there in the bullpen?
I try not to be too intentional with it. Just kind of be myself, and when questions are asked, try to do a good job answering them. Based on my experience and things that I've learned through my many years here. It's a role that I'm happy to take on, and we do still have a lot of young arms on this team, and young players in general. So a lot of talent though, and I think I'm kind of hoping that I can have some influence on those guys.
If you look at that group there, a lot of those guys have had good years and pitched in some important games. I know things kind of all fell apart last year, late in the year, but do you see a playoff bullpen there? And what do you see the difference between maybe what you saw last year and a playoff bullpen?
Oh, absolutely. I think like I said, getting Obi back is, that's a elite late inning arm that we're adding that we didn't have last year. Givens was such a small sample size. I think he showed how he's capable of throwing. You can't really judge a whole lot off the 8 or 9 innings he threw, but you saw the stuff is there and the track record's there, so he's going to be shut down for us. I think Kinley took huge steps. I think overall, I think we're going to do a better job of game planning this year. I think that was something we could have done a little better last year, just having a clear plan of how we want to attack guys, how we want to get them out. But yeah, I mean, Yensi's turned into an elite arm back there, and Esty and Hyro, throwing upper 90s. Like we got a lot of weapons. I think it's how we use them and how we attack with it.
How do you improve game planning, and what are the things that maybe you saw? Was it a case of, in some cases, experience, or just the cramness of last season? What can be corrected?
Yeah, well, for me, I mean, it was, the season was kind of a whirlwind. Finding out 3 days before the year, that season before opener, that I made the team, and trying to not overthink things at the same time, and just go out there and play the game and have fun. And as the season went on and I got more comfortable, I think I got more into that side of it and really having a plan. And I saw the difference. I saw when you do put the time in to studying those scouting reports and diving into them, like, it does make a difference. You feel more confident going out there. You throw those pitches with more conviction. So I think if we can do that better from top to bottom in the bullpen, that's going to turn our, just from just having good stuff, a bullpen with a lot of guys with good stuff to a really good bullpen.
And final question for me to really follow up on that. Has that been kind of a theme there at the start of camp that, maybe we need to either study more or streamline our study a bit? I mean, is that something that you guys really honed in on?
There's been a few conversations about it. I think we haven't really gotten into the meetings portion of spring training yet. It's a little tough with all the rules, but we do have plans, I think, to kind of put everyone's heads together on the coaching side. There's guys in the front office that want to help here too. So I think it's going to be a really good collaborative effort.
Very much, Daniel.
Go to Pat Graham, Associated Press. Pat, go ahead.
Hey Daniel, thanks for taking the time, really appreciate it. Got a two-parter here for you. The first one would be just how much did your off-season approach change knowing you had a job as opposed to hoping to earn a job? Did it change at all?
Well, I didn't have to worry about, impressing teams at a tryout, which was kind of what I was getting ready for last year at this time. Having to be able to step on a mound, and knew I had to have my best fastball ready for that tryout. And this year, I'm able to take a little bit slower ramp, which is probably better for my body. I feel ready, I feel strong. Looking forward to getting in some spring games, but again, there's just not the, hey, I got to be ready to throw 98 on January 20th. So that was kind of nice.
Hey, how much are you looking forward to just not being Daniel Bard, the pitcher with a remarkable comeback story, but just Daniel Bard, the pitcher?
Very much. Yeah, last year was amazing. At times I kind of, I don't think when you're in it you realize how crazy it is. And there were times this offseason where I was able to look back and reflect on it. And, I think the one thing that allowed me to do what I did last year was I kind of just tried to keep my head down, answer questions when I had to. But other than that, like, just kind of get lost in my daily routine, which was hard at times because, there's a lot of people, that want to hear more about the story and stuff. But I was like, I'm still living it. Like, I still got to go out and pitch every night. So I think this year will be nice. It'll, like you said, step back in. The story's, I won't say behind us, but we're in a new year. Hopefully people are excited about a lot of things about this team, and I just want to be a part of that.
Knowing that you have last season now, can that be your frame of reference and not anything in the past? I mean, can you know what I mean? Can you center around that if anything happens? Yeah,
well, I just go off how I feel every day. Physically and mentally, and I think I've gotten to where I know myself well enough that I can prepare myself accordingly, and I think that's what I did last year, and it worked very well. I felt very much the same every time I took the mound, so I don't plan on really changing any of that going into this year.
Go to Nick Roque from The Athletic. Nick, go ahead.
Yeah, hey Daniel, when you look back at last spring, specifically last spring, after you'd arrived, whatever it was, a couple of weeks, obviously there was a lot going on for you, but for the physical part of it, were you concerned about getting through a full season without the normal preparation? Were you
Yeah, I felt good, but I remember talking with Gabe Bauer, who's our strength coach here. One of the first workouts I did in there, I said, look, man, I feel so good on the mound right now. I really feel like the only thing that's going to keep me from doing what I'm capable of doing this year is if my body breaks. Just because I'd had the 2 years of not playing, 2.5 years. And so, we kind of put together a plan and took that mindset all year of like, look, we're going to do what we need to do to stay healthy. stay durable, and it worked really well. You know, I'm definitely stronger right now than I was at this point last year, like noticeably stronger. And I hope that, you know, I felt good last year, but let me just say that I'm glad it was a 60-game season and not 162. That worked out really well for me. So kind of gave me like a bridge year to get back to the full season this year.
Yeah, gotcha. So then when you go into this season, then what are the things that you need to know, or what are the sort of benchmarks that you have physically? Do you need to see yourself like pitch on back-to-back days, back-to-back nights, whatever it is? And do you need the games? Do you need proper games to know that you're? I don't even mean Cactus League games. I mean season games, to know that you're physically where you want to be, or can you figure that out in the spring?
Yeah, I'm not big on the back-to-back, or I mean, I'll do it if that's something they want, but I know that if I'm healthy, it'll be there, you know, when the season gets going, and a lot of that is kind of adrenaline based, anyways. You know, you're just the energy of the game is gonna get you ready. So as long as you're healthy. Sorry, what was the second part of that question?
What are your benchmarks to know that you're right physically?
I think just seeing the hitters' reactions, which I'll get in these spring training games. Just knowing that you can throw the pitches to both sides of the plate, up, down. You know, that's it. I think it's just reps. It's being able to get in those games and compete rather than like think about mechanics or delivery or those different things, but really being externally focused on the hitter and winning those at bats. Once I'm in that mindset, you know, I just kind of let it roll.
Like, can you tell me if this is off for you personally? But it seems like a lot of pitchers, when they get more experience, I don't even mean age, but literally just experience, that they kind of learn to. They get to be stronger as they go through their careers a little bit more, just because they figure out how to handle themselves physically better. Does that sound sort of the same for you?
Yeah, I mean, you just start to.
You know how to prepare.
Yeah, I just think you just start to really know yourself better. You know what your body can handle. You know when to push it and when to let off a little bit. So I think that's, you know, I haven't been pitching in the big leagues for all of the last 12 years, but I have been a player and have been around baseball for that whole time and learned a lot of things, you know, by just spending hours and hours in the weight room with 6 different organizations and picking their brains that way and stuff. So I just try to gather as much information as possible, try the things that sound good, you know, ditch some other stuff and move on. And I guess I look back, it was 15 years ago I was drafted. So, I mean, that's a lot of time and a lot of teams I've been around to just kind of gather things. So I just try to use that and, you know, apply it to myself and try to keep things simple.
Thanks, dude.
Go to Sam Bradfield from Purple Rose. Sam.
Hey, Daniel. Good morning. Thank you for taking the time.
Thanks.
Yeah, so we talked earlier with Dom Nunez about like the chemistry between pitchers and catchers and how important it is. And I know, like, guilty myself here, but we put a lot of stock kind of into the chemistry between starting pitchers and catchers, since they spend a lot of time together on the field. So how important is it for relievers and catchers to have chemistry, and how do y'all build that chemistry as like bullpen catchers?
Yeah, no, I think it's huge. I think, you know, relieving, we're in such short spurts. You know, I think knowing for the catcher to know the pitcher's kind of mindset. Is he a guy who feeds off a lot of energy? Is he a guy who needs to be calmed down? Is he a guy who needs a lot of direction and real specific game planning? Or is he a guy that just kind of goes out and throws? Like, there's so many different personalities and a lot of different things that can work as a reliever. I think it's huge that the catcher knows that stuff, so he's not you know, able to help the guy through each outing. So I think, you know, I got to know Dom really well, sitting out in the bullpen with him last year. You know, him being on the taxi squad most of the year, and we had some awesome conversations. He's really impressive. He asks a lot of good questions. You know, he didn't allow last year to be a waste for him. You know, even though he wasn't getting the at bats in games like he probably wanted to. He was locked in. He was asking me questions about how I like to attack hitters and hey, what would you do in this situation against this guy, you know, and so he was studying those lineups. You know, he was at all those, sitting out there with us in the bullpen for, you know, all those Dodger, Giants, and D-backs games, and studying those hitters. So I think he'll be really prepared when he gets the opportunity this year.
And then, so last year was kind of a weird season, obviously, and all the stuff that happened during spring training. So now that we're in 2021, kind of seeing and knowing more or less kind of what's coming with like all the COVID and even just more of a kind of normal-ish season, if you will. What are you most excited about going into 2021, having kind of a better idea of maybe what's going to come?
Honestly, fans. You know, I think that was the only thing that could have made last year, you know, more memorable for me, is having fans in the stands, feeding off that energy, and then personally, you know, just being able to get my family to the games. I got 3 kids that haven't seen me pitch in person in a game, so we're hoping that happens at some point this year, and that's probably what I'm selfishly looking forward to the most.
Great. Well, thank you so much for your time this morning.
Thank you.
All right, we have time for a couple more here. Kevin Henry, go ahead.
Hey Daniel, thanks for the time, man. Appreciate it. Question for you. So you mentioned Michael Givens a little bit earlier. Can you talk a little bit, because obviously we did see a very small sample size. You saw a lot more of him and workouts, got to know him better. What can Rockies fans expect from him, and how did you build that relationship after he came onto the team last year?
Yeah, when I had seen him pitch, you know, for years with the Orioles, and at one point I was trying to throw sidearm back in like 2016, and I was studying videos of him. I didn't know him at all, but I just knew he was a guy who threw sidearm and threw pretty hard. So I remember studying videos. That's kind of my first taste of him. And then we got to be teammates last year, and you know, the thing that struck me right away in our conversations and then watching him make his first few outings is like he has no fear. And you know, that's something that I think is really important. Pitching in Colorado is having no fear, you know, not knowing that things might not be perfect, especially pitching at home. Things might not be quite the same as they are at sea level, but not being scared of it, you know, just going out, competing every time. I saw that out of him. You know, I think he got rode pretty hard over there in Baltimore for a few years, so I think the short season was probably good for him too. So I think we're going to see a good version of him coming out this year, healthy. Like I said, mindset, the guy wants to pitch. He wants the ball in the toughest situations. So I was impressed by that, and I'm excited to see him throw again this year.
I appreciate it.
I'll go back to Thomas and Patrick really quick here, please. Thomas, go ahead.
Okay, just real quickly, Dom, can you tell me, maybe relay a conversation with him that impressed you about his knowledge, or at least his study? And he did talk about talking to you and Kenley in the bullpen there, but what was some of the things that he brought up that led you to say, hey, this guy's paying attention?
I don't know if there was a specific conversation I can remember. I just know we sat down there, and we would sit there and watch an at bat, and I would say, he just missed up and in. What do you call here? And he would tell me, and we were thinking fast, like, you know, when you're doing that, you had to think at game speed. You know, you can't think about what pitch you're going to throw for 20 seconds because the game's moving. So he would say this, and I'm like, don't go there, do this, and I'd explain why, and then we'd see what happened in the game. So like things like that, where we were just kind of live chatting through, like you know, game planning and watching the game as it unfolded. And you know, I hope he learned a thing or two. Hopefully I didn't screw him up too bad.
Thanks, man. I appreciate that.
All right, Patrick Saunders is the last question here. Patrick, go ahead.
Yeah, very quick question for you. You mentioned your workout routine. You said you put on weight. Can you share with us a little bit how much you weigh now, and what were the things you got besides strength-wise during this off season?
Yeah, no, I stuck with the Rockies program. A lot of guys go off and kind of do their own thing. I just, you know, I liked what they had to offer here, and so I pretty much stuck with the Rockies program, which was a lot of squats. It was like every day, just show up, more squats, which is what I needed, especially after a couple years out. I think just good total body strength. Yeah, I ended up gaining like 10 or 12 pounds, which I needed. It got me back to pretty close, right around where I pitched, the weight I pitched at in Boston for a couple years. So I feel good. I feel strong, and I don't feel like I gained weight and got slower or anything like that. So it feels good.
What is that weight?
I'm like between 212, 215, something like that.
Excellent. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Daniel. Really appreciate the time.